Yesterday on my On This Day Facebook feed came up a sermon that I had written at the end of 2012, which I reread. Apparently, 2012 was a hard year. The world did not end as predicted by the Mayan calendar, but we did live through the shooting death of Trayvon Martin, movie theater mass murder in Aurora, Colorado, Hurricane Sandy, and Sandy Hook's elementary horror. I remember thinking that things couldn't get any worse, but here we are. I was unaware until recently of the popular term dumpster fire that has been circulating to describe this year. On occasion, the fire department is called to put out a fire contained within a trash dumpster. Sometimes people dispose of hot barbecue coals in the waste, and it sets everything smelly aflame. It's an apt metaphor for the stench of this year, which garnered attention with massive flames. I first learned about this metaphor when a UCC colleague, Reverend Lori Walkie, had a dumpster fire Christmas ornament party at her home. Grown women stood around the dining room table, sewing dumpsters made out of felt with flames coming out of the top. It was a lighthearted but truthful way to forever remember that we have been through a lot this year. The ornament had 2016 sewed on it so that every year it will hang on the tree and remembrances will happen. As I sat down to write my very first Christmas Eve sermon, I remembered what I was supposed to preach about. The pastor should always preach that which she most needs to hear herself. Firstly, I need to hear the truth. I have forever resented it when the truth has been held back from me, someone else making the decision that I was not resilient enough to survive the truth. So the truth is that this year was hard, and next year looks scary. I'm not saying it was all bad. For sure, there were pockets of joy, experiences of people finding meaningful work, life milestone celebrations, first-time home buying, and all of that was just my own life. But 2016 also held tragedy and pain, corruption, murder, apathy, death, earthquakes, terrorist attacks, mass shootings in Orlando and other places, election results, never-ending racism. But after hearing the truth, what I need next is a glimpse of hope, a light at the end of the tunnel, a silver lining or a blueprint of how we are supposed to move forward. I don't like the idea of 2017 being a battle, especially because I follow a nonviolent, effective rabble-rouser named Jesus. But as we should all know, not all battles are fought with violence. And it looks like we are gearing up for a big one. This month alone, I opened no less than 20 letters sent to the church from nonprofit organizations pleading for extra funds to fight against next year's presidential leadership. What I think we all really need is a secret weapon for 2017. Now, I have to admit, I have on more than one occasion gone in search of a secret weapon. What is that one word that will cut to the core of the person I am defending myself against? What is that secret weapon? Who is the perfect person for me to show up with in order to back up my case? But honestly, the weapon I have found most successful and yet the hardest to employ is that of making oneself vulnerable. The angel said to them, "Today in David's city, a Savior, the Messiah, has been born to you. Let this be a sign to you. You will find a vulnerable infant wrapped in a simple cloth, lying in a manger." They hurried and found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in a manger. The reason we celebrate this night is because we experience a God who shows up again and again through vulnerability. Babies of all species are the most vulnerable creatures on our planet. They have many needs and no way of defending themselves from harm. Babies rely on others for protection and nourishment. Tonight we hear the story of baby Jesus and realize that God's secret plan to creep into the world beside us involves addressing war and despair through making ourselves as vulnerable as God did, and through the protecting of those who are already more vulnerable than others. Vulnerability is risky. It does not ensure victory, nor escape from pain. So, what if we remove victory as the goal? I know a lot of 70-plus year elders and activists whom I adore and revere, and they are depressed as hell about the civil rights and equality losses that we are already experiencing, for which they fought so hard, for which they deserve respect and the ability to take a well-deserved rest. But rest does not appear to be on the menu for next year. And I'm not sure if victory does either. But to be honest, I'm not really interested in playing a game where some win and others lose. I know that every movie and story and theme within our culture is based on a winners and losers dynamic. But in my own experience, true victory only occurs in win-win situations. Our Advent theme for this year was unexpected refuge and prophetic rebellion. Mary and Sarah experienced vulnerability through the arrival of their unexpected pregnancies. When Mary and Joseph were at their most vulnerable, far from home, bringing their firstborn into the world, God provided refuge in a barn when others would not make space for them. When the shepherds experienced a prophetic angelic message, they did not hesitate to make themselves vulnerable enough to share that message with strangers whom they'd never even met. And when the Magi received instructions from King Herod, the most powerful governmental voice in the land, they put themselves in a vulnerable position by rebelling against his demands. The last thing I need to hear on Christmas Eve, besides the truth and a plan involving a secret weapon of vulnerability modeled by the Christ child, is to know that I'm not doing this alone. I need solidarity. So tonight, let us vow to be the unexpected blessing for the world next year. Let us provide refuge for one another and the stranger when there seems to be no one willing to make space. Let us prophetically share good news even with strangers, and let us vulnerably rebel against normalizing hatred and ugliness together. Many of us came to this Christmas Eve service seeking comfort. Tradition and ritual set us at ease. We reflect on all that has happened since the last Christmas Eve. We light our candle. We sing Silent Night to add a piece of beauty to this world that is much needed. The very act of us gathering creates beauty and peace. We see solidarity in the candlelit faces around us and know that no matter how vulnerable we already feel or will choose to make ourselves in this coming year, we are not alone. On Christmas, we celebrate a creator becoming the created. A ruler born as a baby, one who would grow in wisdom and age to teach us to rule not by taking up arms or stockpiling weapons, but by using the secret power of vulnerability. It's through vulnerability that the most sacred things in life can happen. Humbleness, the learning of important lessons, the sharing of intimacy, the opening of a heart. God coming to earth through the baby and the birth reminds us that God's ways are often opposite of what we would expect. And we gather on this Christmas Eve and every year to remind ourselves of this wonderful truth. Once they saw this, they reported what had been told concerning the child. All who heard about it were astonished. The Mother of God treasured these things and reflected upon them in her heart. The strangers went away glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen. The angels are waiting. Will we open our hearts? Will we give birth to love? Will we answer yes to the ways of God? In solidarity, may it be so. Amen.